American President Barack Obama has signed into law, effective immediately, putting an end to an immigration policy called wet feet, dry feet. What that means is that people who are defecting or escaping from communist Cuba, these are people who might get on a boat or a raft and travel the 90-odd miles from Cuba to Florida at risking their own lives. This means that when they land on American soil, they can be arrested or deported. They're no longer going to be allowed to automatically stay and after 1 year and 1 day apply for a green card and get benefits. In other words, they're going to be treated just like everybody else who tries to get into America illegally. They're going to have to wait in line and be treated just like anybody else. Arguably, what Obama has done is inhumane and outright cruel, if not cynical. Here's why. There is a distinct difference between somebody who is trying to escape from communist Cuba versus, say, crossing the border illegally into the United States from Mexico. While Mexico is not a shining example of a country that has its act together, it is in fact just behind India in World Corruption Index. The point is that when people are coming from Mexico, they're not escaping from a dictatorship run by a communist. We must remember that Fidel Castro, although he's lauded by the la-la liberal left, which is rather curious, he murdered tens of thousands of people. Free speech does not exist in Cuba. The free press does not exist. The right to form unions and organize and protest peacefully does not exist in Cuba. And while Castro's apologists will say, hey, he gave us free education, he gave the Cubans free education, that's irrelevant to the people he has killed in huge numbers. It's always amazing to me, as a journalist, how so-called progressives and people who claim that they care about human rights will sit there and excuse a brutal dictatorship who gives free education or brainwashing and free health care, but oppresses people every other way. Castro doesn't even allow the formation of unions. And the fact that medicine and drugs are cheap in Cuba, that's not worth the price of killing people, is it? So now Obama has done this as part of his so-called reapproachment with Cuba. What this means is that those who want to flee the oppression, the torture, the censorship, they don't want to live in a communist system. That would be most people on this planet. They're now going to be subject to the normal bureaucracy, and they can even be deported back to Cuba. Before Obama made this change, Americans cared since the 1990s when this immigration policy of wet feet, dry feet existed. In fact, the reason it was passed was to give a break to the oppressed, to allow them to stay in America and try to start their life anew, free from the tyranny of communism. Congratulations, Obama. I wish I could say thank you.